My boyfriend of 3 years secretly stole over $2,500 from my savings, the very money I had worked hard to put aside for our future apartment, and used it to take another woman on a Cancun vacation, only to later dismiss my pain with, "Relax, you'll get over it," before desperately begging for me to come back. My boyfriend took my money to fund a getaway with another woman. When I confronted him, he merely rolled his eyes, stating, "Relax, you'll get over it." His friends joined in, mocking me, and she even labeled me pathetic. Yet, just a few days later, his voice was raw with desperation on my voicemail, pleading for my return. Felix and I had been a couple for a little over 3 years. While we didn't officially share a home, he spent most nights at my apartment. His commute to work was a 40-minute drive from his place, whereas mine was only 15. We had discussed moving in together properly next year, once my current lease ended. At least, that was the plan. We were both reasonably stable financially, typically sharing most expenses when we went out, alternating grocery payments, and generally maintaining what I believed was a fair financial arrangement. For the past 18 months, I had been diligently saving for a security deposit and the first month's rent for a better apartment, anticipating our move. It wasn't a fortune, around $2,800, but it represented numerous small sacrifices: packing lunches instead of buying them, skipping coffee shop visits, and picking up extra weekend shifts whenever possible. Last Friday, I intended to transfer some funds from my savings to my checking account for my car insurance. I opened my banking application and nearly dropped my phone. My savings balance showed $267, not the $2,800 it should have been. My immediate thought was a mistake or that my account had been compromised. Panicked, I called the bank. After answering security questions, the representative brought up my recent transactions. There had been a withdrawal of $2,550 3 days prior. I hadn't made it. When the representative inquired if anyone else had access to my account, my heart sank. Felix knew my phone password. I'd never concealed it from him. We always had an open phone policy, and he'd seen me input my banking app password before. I never imagined he would exploit it. I thanked the bank representative and ended the call, then checked the app's security details. The withdrawal had been performed in person at a branch across town, using my ID. However, I hadn't visited that branch in months. Felix must have taken my driver's license from my wallet while I was showering or asleep. I tried calling Felix, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted him, asking his whereabouts and if we could speak. He replied a few hours later, claiming he was out with friends and would be back the following day. Something about the entire situation felt wrong. I spent the night restless, desperately trying to devise any explanation other than the obvious. Perhaps there was an emergency he hadn't shared, or he was planning some elaborate surprise. Deep down, I knew I was grasping at straws. The next morning, I checked his Instagram, which I rarely do as he seldom posts. There was nothing new on his profile, but my world crumbled when I viewed his friend Andy's stories. There was Felix on a beach, his arm around a girl I'd never encountered. The caption read, "Day 2 of vacation vibes with these lovebirds." Lovebirds, plural. I scrolled through more of Andy's stories, seeing additional photos of Felix and this girl, Jasmine, according to the tags. They were at a resort in Cancun, a trip that would have cost approximately $2,500 for two people. I felt physically ill. 3 years together, and he had stolen my hard-earned money to take another woman on a trip. I remained on my bathroom floor for what seemed like hours, fluctuating between tears and complete numbness. When Felix finally returned home Sunday evening, I was waiting. He entered as if nothing were amiss, tanned and smiling, dropping his duffel bag by the door. He greeted me casually and leaned in to kiss me, but I pulled back and confronted him about his actual whereabouts. Initially, he attempted to maintain his story about being with his male friends. However, when I presented him with Andy's Instagram stories, his demeanor shifted entirely. Not to embarrassment or remorse, but to annoyance, as if I had merely caught him in a minor fib about eating the last cookie, rather than betraying our entire relationship. He didn't even deny taking the money. He asserted it was a spur-of-the-moment trip, claiming Jasmine had won tickets, but needed a companion. He casually mentioned he would repay me eventually, as if that somehow justified his actions. When I pointed out that he often struggled to cover his half of our groceries, he became defensive. What truly astonished me was his attempt to minimize the theft, saying it wasn't my rent money, it was just sitting there. I reminded him it was our future apartment fund, money I had saved for over a year. He then had the audacity to laugh, remarking that we wouldn't find anything decent for just $2,800 anyway. When I asked if Jasmine was his girlfriend, he hesitated just long enough for me to discern the truth before denying it. He insisted she was just a friend, but we all understand that friends typically don't embark on romantic beach getaways together. Throughout the entire confrontation, he remained incredibly dismissive, grabbing a beer from the fridge, declaring he didn't want to argue, and acting as if I was overreacting. When I called him out for stealing and cheating, he looked me directly in the eyes and said, "Relax, you'll get over it." At that moment, I knew this wasn't a mistake or a single lapse in judgment. This was who he truly was. Someone capable of stealing from me, cheating on me, and then telling me to simply get over it, as if I were being unreasonable. I instructed him to leave my apartment. He tried to argue, mentioning his place was distant and he had work in the morning. I told him that was his concern, and he should have considered that before stealing my money and being unfaithful. As he departed, he had the nerve to mumble that I was being impossible and making a big deal out of nothing. His final jab was telling me to keep the drama because Jasmine wouldn't act like this. After he left, I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. I spent the next 2 days in a daze, trying to process everything. I blocked him after receiving multiple texts accusing me of overreacting and demanding that we talk like adults. I called out sick from work both yesterday and today, and I've barely eaten. I repeatedly check my bank account, futilely hoping the money will somehow reappear. I'm unsure what to do now. A part of me considers reporting the theft to the police, but we've been together for 3 years, and despite everything, the idea of him being arrested makes me sick. Yet, when I recall the look on his face as he told me to get over it, I feel a different kind of sickness. I contacted the bank again this morning, but since he had access to my ID and knew my passwords, they categorized it as unauthorized use rather than fraud. They advised my best option would be to pursue it as a civil matter. I'm changing all my passwords, opening a new bank account, and plan to have my locks changed tomorrow. I don't believe he'd attempt to return, but I no longer know the person he is, so I can't be certain. I'm not even sure what I'm seeking here. I just needed to vocalize this somewhere, because I feel like I'm drowning. First update first, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who commented on my previous post. I honestly didn't anticipate such an outpouring of responses, and reading your comments truly made me feel less isolated and less irrational. Many of you requested an update, and here it is. A week has passed since I removed Felix from my apartment after discovering he had stolen my savings for Jasmine's Cancun trip. The initial couple of days were a blur of tears, minimal eating, and obsessively checking my phone. Even though I had blocked him, I kept hoping he would find a way to contact me and explain that it was all a huge misunderstanding. I returned to work on Wednesday, as I simply couldn't afford to miss any more days. My coworker noticed my distress during lunch and asked if I was all right. I provided her with the abbreviated version, and her horrified reaction was quite validating. That night, I received a text from an unfamiliar number. It was Felix, using his friend Morris's phone, with a simple message: "We need to talk." I didn't reply. An hour later, another text arrived. "You're being childish. It's just money." I said, "I'll pay you back." I blocked Morris's number as well. Thursday passed without incident, but Friday was when things truly deteriorated. My friend Carla invited me out for drinks, insisting I needed to leave my apartment. I was hesitant but agreed, as she was right. I had been alternating between work and hiding under my blankets, scrolling through social media. We went to a downtown bar that hosts trivia on Fridays. For the first time all week, I was actually beginning to feel almost normal, laughing at Carla's terrible guesses during the music round. Then I went to the restroom. When I returned, I froze. Felix was there with Andy, Maurice, and 3 other individuals from his social circle. They were seated at a table across the room and hadn't noticed me yet. I immediately informed Carla that we needed to leave, but as I gathered my jacket, Andy spotted me and began to approach. Andy came over with a smug smirk, making loud remarks about my crying over my piggy bank and how Felix had been moping all week because of my overreaction. According to him, Felix hadn't spent my money on drugs. It was just a vacation with a hot girl, and any guy would have done the same. I attempted to stand my ground, reminding him that Felix had stolen from me, but Andy just rolled his eyes dramatically. By this point, Felix had noticed the commotion and was heading over with Maurice and the others, effectively obstructing our path to the door. Felix acted incredibly casual, as if we had simply bumped into each other at the grocery store. He repeatedly insisted I needed to unblock him so we could sort this out. When I firmly stated there was nothing to sort out and reiterated that he had stolen my money and cheated on me, Maurice and the other guy began to snicker. Felix's defense was pathetic. He admitted that taking the money without asking was wrong, but claimed it wasn't stealing because we're together and what's yours is mine. He insisted Jasmine was just a friend and that it wasn't a romantic vacation because Andy and Maurice were also present. It was a group thing. When I pointed out that Andy's Instagram literally referred to them as lovebirds, Andy mumbled something about it being just a joke. That's when I heard a female voice behind me, and my humiliation reached an entirely new level. It was Jasmine, asking if I was the one having a meltdown over a few dollars. When I tried to explain he had stolen my savings, she looked me up and down with a pitying expression and called me pathetic for being so upset over $2,000. I corrected her, stating it was actually $2,550 and had taken me over a year to save. Her response? She threw her head back and laughed, declaring that was even sadder. I looked at Felix, expecting him to defend me or tell her to back off. Instead, he was staring at the floor, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. That's when it truly hit me. He had told them everything. They had been laughing about it, about me, the girl foolish enough to have her money stolen, pathetic enough to be upset by it. Carla, bless her, announced we were leaving and pushed past Maurice. As we walked away, I heard more laughter behind us, and Jasmine made sure I heard her telling Felix he had dodged a bullet by not being with someone that financially unstable. I made it outside before the tears started. Carla hugged me while I struggled to compose myself, then ordered an Uber to take us back to my place. In the car, she told me Felix and his friends had always been unpleasant, and she had never understood what I saw in him. Back in my apartment, Carla stayed over. We ordered pizza, opened a bottle of wine, and she let me vent. I showed her the text Felix had sent from Morris's phone, and she helped me block a few more numbers I hadn't considered. The next morning, I woke to an Instagram direct message from Jasmine. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won out. The message confirmed my worst fears. She and Felix had been seeing each other for months. He had been telling her that we were essentially broken up and merely roommates. She claimed discovering he had stolen my money was gross, but wanted me to know the full truth, that this didn't begin with Cancun. I took a screenshot, then blocked her too. Months. All those late nights working, the weekends he claimed he was helping his friend move, the mysterious phone calls he would take outside, it all made sense now. I showed Carla the message when she woke up. She wasn't surprised, pointing out that men like Felix don't suddenly decide to steal and cheat. They build up to it. We spent Saturday developing a plan. First, I called my landlord and explained the situation, asking if I could change the locks since Felix wasn't on the lease. They agreed to send someone Monday morning. Then, I visited my bank and opened a completely new account at a different institution, transferring what little money I had remaining. I updated all my passwords and set up two-factor authentication on everything. Carla assisted me in going through my apartment, collecting anything Felix had left behind into a box. It wasn't much. Some clothes, a toothbrush, a few video games. Nothing worth contending over. Sunday morning, I woke up feeling different. Not necessarily better, but clearer. The humiliation from Friday night still stung, but beneath it was something else. Anger. Not the hot, reactive kind from when I first found out, but something colder and more focused. They thought I was pathetic? Fine, let them believe that. But I wasn't going to simply withdraw and disappear. I spent Sunday cleaning my apartment from top to bottom, discarding items that reminded me of Felix, rearranging furniture. It sounds trivial, but it felt like reclaiming my personal space. I also formulated a budget to rebuild my savings. It would require time, but I had accomplished it before. This morning, the locksmith arrived and changed my locks. A significant weight lifted from my shoulders, knowing Felix could no longer simply walk in. I went to work, and during lunch, I checked my phone to find 3 missed calls from Felix, not from another number, but his actual one. I must have missed it when I was blocking contacts. I listened to the voicemail he had left. His tone had completely shifted from Friday night. He sounded worried, almost panicked, saying we needed to talk because Jasmine was saying some crazy stuff that wasn't true, or at least not all of it. He ended with, "I miss you." I deleted it without returning the call. When I arrived home from work, a small envelope had been slipped under my door. Inside was $300 in cash and a note. "Starting to pay you back. Can we please talk? F." $300 out of $2,550, and he thought that would resolve things. I'm uncertain of his current strategy. Perhaps Jasmine ended things with him after discovering he's a thief. Perhaps his friends grew tired of the drama, leaving him with no one to spend time with. Maybe he realized living 40 minutes from work actually sucks. Whatever his motivation, I'm not engaging. The Felix the first believed I knew never existed. The true Felix stole my money, cheated on me for months, allowed his friends to mock me, and stood idly by while his other girlfriend called me pathetic. Carla is coming over again tonight to help me compose a text, making it absolutely clear that we are finished, and he needs to cease all contact. She also suggested I document everything, just in case I need to obtain a restraining order, which feels extreme, but after the past week, I wouldn't put anything past him. I will provide another update if anything significant occurs. Second update, thank you all for the overwhelming support on my previous posts. Reading your comments has been both comforting and truly eye-opening. Many of you requested another update, so here it is. It's been almost 2 weeks since the bar incident where Felix, Jasmine, and their friends publicly humiliated me. Since then, Felix has intensified his attempts to reach me. The $300 he slipped under my door was merely the beginning. He has appeared at my workplace twice, forcing me to inform my supervisor about the situation, which was mortifying. He sent flowers with apology notes and even had his mother call me, though I didn't answer. Last Thursday morning, I woke to find my car had a flat tire. At first, I dismissed it as bad luck until I noticed a small puncture that appeared deliberate. I cannot definitively prove Felix did it, but the timing felt incredibly suspicious. I was already running late, so I had to call an Uber to get to work and deal with a tire later, just another unexpected expense I certainly didn't need. That was the final breaking point. After work, I went directly to Carla's place instead of heading home. I feared Felix might be waiting at my apartment, and I desperately needed space to think. Carla prepared us dinner, and we sat down to devise a real strategy. Not just blocking him and hoping he'd disappear, but a comprehensive plan to permanently remove him from my life. You need to think of this like a chess game, Carla stated. He's made his moves. Now it's your turn. I've never been adept at chess, but I understood her meaning. Until now, I had merely been reacting to Felix, changing my locks after he tried to enter, blocking numbers after he contacted me. I needed to become proactive instead of reactive. We compiled a list of everything I needed to accomplish. Move out completely while Felix was at work, disentangle our finances, document everything, contact his family, reach out to mutual friends, and prepare for potential escalation. The following morning, I called in sick to work. I felt bad about it, but I needed a full day to put my plan into action. First, I contacted my landlord and explained the situation in more detail. To my surprise, she was incredibly understanding. She agreed to release me from my lease with just 30 days' notice instead of the usual 60. Next, I went to my bank and spoke with a manager about my accounts. I had already opened a new account at a different bank, but I wanted to ensure there were no lingering connections. I also checked my credit report to confirm Felix hadn't opened anything in my name. Thankfully, he hadn't gone that far. I spent the afternoon meticulously inventorying everything in my apartment, photographing my possessions. I categorized items, things that were definitely mine from before Felix, items we had purchased together, and things that were clearly his. For the joint purchases, I made notes about who had paid for what. That evening, I began packing my essential items, important documents, sentimental belongings, and enough clothes for a week. Carla helped me transport these to her place for temporary storage. The next significant step was contacting Felix's family. This was the part one dreaded the most. Felix is close with his parents, particularly his mother, who had always been kind to me. I drafted and redrafted a message to her, striving to find the right balance between being informative and accusatory. Ultimately, I kept it simple and factual. I explained that Felix had taken money from my account without permission, used it to go on vacation with another woman, and that when confronted, he had been dismissive and cruel. I included screenshots of my bank statement showing the withdrawal, Andy's Instagram posts from Cancun, and Jasmine's message confirming they had been seeing each other for months. Her response arrived the next morning. "Lena, I'm shocked and disappointed to hear this. I've raised Felix better than this. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I'll be speaking with him." I felt a tremendous weight lift from my shoulders. She believed me. I hadn't realized how much I needed that validation until I received it. The next phase of the plan was more intricate, reaching out to mutual friends. Felix and I shared several friend groups, and I knew I needed to get ahead of any narrative he might be trying to spread. I decided to start with our most mutual friend, August. He had known Felix longer than me, but he had always been fair-minded. I asked if we could meet for coffee, and he agreed. At the cafe, I provided him with a condensed version of events, showing him the same evidence I had sent to Felix's mom. His reaction surprised me. "I knew something was off," he said. "Felix has been acting weird for months, making excuses not to hang out with the old group, and last week he was asking if anyone could loan him money for rent." That was news to me. Rent? He had never struggled with rent before. August mentioned he'd said something about unexpected expenses. I suppose a trip to Cancun would certainly qualify. Before we parted, August promised to clarify the situation with our other friends. "Not everyone will believe it," he warned. "Andy and Maurice are too far up Felix's ass to see reality, but most people will understand." Over the next few days, I continued executing my plan. I located a small studio apartment across town that I could manage on my own. The landlord agreed to a 6-month lease, and I could move in the following week. I also contacted my phone provider and changed my number, sending the new contact only to people I completely trusted: Carla, my family, a few close friends, and my supervisor at work. The most challenging part was returning to my apartment to pack everything else. I chose a Tuesday, knowing Felix would be working a double shift at the warehouse. Carla and August came to assist, bringing August's pickup truck. We were nearly finished when my phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Heads up, Felix just left work early," said he wasn't feeling well. It was from Danny, a guy who works with Felix. We had met at a company picnic last summer. I hadn't even thought to warn him about the situation, but apparently, August had reached out to him. My heart started racing. We still had at least another hour of packing to do, and Felix could arrive at any moment. We worked in intense silence, tossing items into boxes without much organization. We had just loaded the final box when Felix's car pulled into the parking lot. August quickly got into his truck and Carla and I jumped into my car. As we pulled out of the parking space, Felix spotted us. The look on his face, confusion, then shock, then anger, is something I will never forget. The remainder of that day was a blur of moving boxes, assembling furniture, and flinching every time my phone vibrated. Felix had somehow acquired my new number and was sending a barrage of texts, oscillating between apologies, anger, and pleas. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I took screenshots and added them to my growing folder of documentation. That night, sleeping in my new place, I felt strangely calm. The apartment was sparsely furnished, just a mattress on the floor, boxes everywhere, and the fridge empty save for a pizza box and some beer August had brought over. No memories of Felix, no worrying if he would show up unannounced. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from Felix's mom. She sounded tired and sad. "Lena, I spoke with Felix. He admitted everything. I don't know what to say, except I'm so sorry. He wasn't raised this way. If you need anything, please let me know." It's been 3 days since the move. Felix's attempts to contact me have become less frequent, but more desperate. Yesterday, he emailed me, stating Jasmine had ended things with him after learning the full story and that he finally realized what a mistake he had made. I didn't reply. I'm still staying with Carla most nights, only going to my new place to retrieve clothes or other necessities. I'm not ready to fully settle in yet, partly because I'm still organizing everything, but mostly because I'm afraid Felix might somehow discover where I live. The entire situation is exhausting, frightening, and deeply saddening. Last update. Hello everyone. It's been approximately 3 weeks since my last update, and quite a lot has transpired. First, thank you all for your invaluable advice and support. Reading your comments has been instrumental in helping me stay strong whenever I've been tempted to respond to Felix. Several individuals suggested getting a security camera for my new apartment. I heeded that advice and ordered an affordable doorbell camera from Amazon. After I moved out and contacted Felix's family and friends, there was a period of silence from him for about 4 days. Initially, I felt a sense of relief, thinking perhaps he had finally understood the message and was moving on. I should have known better. The silence was broken last Monday morning. I was preparing for work when my phone vibrated with a text from yet another unknown number. "I know you're reading these. You can't just throw away 3 years. We need to talk." I blocked the number without responding. By lunchtime, he had found another means to contact me, this time through a fake Instagram account. The message was longer but essentially the same. I was overreacting, he had made a mistake, and we could work through it. What truly struck me was the continued absence of any genuine acknowledgement of what he had done. "No, I'm sorry I stole from you," or "I'm sorry I cheated on you for months, just I made a mistake," as if he had merely forgotten to take out the trash. That evening, August texted, asking if I wanted to grab dinner. He had been checking in regularly since helping me move. Over pad thai, August updated me on what he had been hearing through the grapevine. Apparently, Felix's life was beginning to unravel. Jasmine had completely broken things off after learning the full story from multiple sources. She had been under the impression that Felix and I were essentially roommates who occasionally hooked up, not a committed couple of 3 years. Felix's parents had cut him off financially. I hadn't realized they were assisting him with bills, but apparently, they had been covering his car insurance and phone plan. Andy and Maurice were still associating with Felix, but most of our other friends had distanced themselves. Most significantly, Felix was struggling with rent. His apartment had always been more expensive than mine, and without my place as a crash pad closer to work, he was spending more on gas. Plus, he had depleted his savings on the Cancun trip. The next morning, I woke to an email from Felix's mom. She wanted to meet for coffee to return some of my belongings that had been at their house. When I arrived, she was already there, looking weary, with dark circles under her eyes. She apologized for Felix's behavior and mentioned he had temporarily moved back home because he couldn't afford his rent. He wasn't handling it well, angry at everyone and failing to grasp that these were the natural consequences of his actions. Before we parted, she hugged me and told me I deserved better from him. I wept in my car afterward, not for Felix, but for the relationship I had thought we shared, for the future we had planned, for the person I had believed him to be. The next few days were relatively quiet. I settled into a routine at my new place and began to rebuild my savings. For brief stretches, I would forget about the entire Felix situation. Then Friday happened. I was at the grocery store when I spotted Maurice watching me from the end of an aisle. My stomach dropped. If Maurice was here, was Felix nearby too? I headed for the exit and nearly collided with Andy in the parking lot. Surprisingly, Andy apologized for his behavior at the bar that night. He admitted Felix had told them we were on the rocks and that the money was partly his anyway. When I asked what prompted this change of heart, Andy revealed that Felix had been behaving strangely, angry all the time, borrowing money without repaying it, even getting drunk and punching a hole in Morris's bathroom wall. Most concerning was that Felix kept talking about me as if I were coming back any day now. When I arrived home, there was a package leaning against my door with my name in Felix's handwriting. Inside was $500 in cash and a rambling letter, shifting between apologies, explanations, and pleas for another chance. He mentioned selling his gaming console to start repaying me and that he had attended 2 therapy sessions. Later that night, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Felix, his words slurred. He inquired if I had received his package and mentioned taking a side gig with DoorDash to repay me. When I confirmed I had, his tone turned desperate. He rambled about everything falling apart, his parents treating him like a teenager, Jasmine refusing to speak to him, friends thinking he was an imbecile. He insisted people make mistakes and that I couldn't throw away 3 years over one mistake. I pointed out it wasn't one mistake, but a series of deliberate choices. He began crying, begging for another chance. I simply said goodbye and ended the call, blocking the number. Within minutes, my phone was vibrating with voicemails from other numbers. The first few were tearful pleas, but the later ones were angry, almost frightening. The final voicemail, left at 2:37 a.m., was just Felix screaming incoherently, with phrases like "ruined my life" and "never loved me," before devolving into unintelligible yelling. I saved all the voicemails and sent them to Carla and August. The next morning, I received a text from Felix's mom apologizing for his behavior. She said they had taken his car keys and were seeking more intensive help for him. It's been 2 days since those voicemails. Felix hasn't attempted to contact me again, but I'm still on edge. I've been staying with Carla again, just to be safe. I don't know what happens next. Either way, I'm not going back. Not after everything that's happened, and certainly not after hearing that voicemail.